All right, let's dive into this one. Percival Everett's James.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, Everett's written, what, like a million books? I mean, Dr. No, The Trees.
He's prolific for sure.
But James, this one really hits differently. It's like, how do we even begin to talk about identity and race?
And the expectation society piles on, especially for Black individuals, it's heavy stuff.
You said it,
Yeah.
but Everett tackles it head on. And he does it while weaving in this whole historical context of, what was it called? Minstrelsy, right?
Exactly. Those 19th century performances, white actors basically mocking African Americans.
Ugh, it's hard to even think about.
Oh, yeah.
But it's crucial to understanding how James fits into modern literature.
Absolutely, because he's not just rehashing history. He's taking that context and saying, look how performance shapes how people see themselves, especially when your identity is already under attack.
It's like being told who you are, then forced to perform that distorted image for someone else's entertainment.
And that leads to this whole other layer of questioning authenticity and authorship. Who gets to tell whose story? Sound familiar?
Oh, totally. Like those debates we have today about representation in media. It's all connected.
And you see that directly in James. With that pamphlet, he finds the narrative of the life and adventures of Venture, a native of Africa.
Okay, I'm with you. So we've got this backdrop of minstrelsy, questions of identity, who gets to tell the story. Now bring in the actual story of James.
All right, so we're in the pre-Civil War South. James, a slave, finds out he's been sold. That's the catalyst. He's got to get back to his family.
And that sets him off on, what, like a classic escape narrative?
Right.
But there's obviously more to it.
Way more. James isn't just running. He's wrestling with who he is in a society that's trying to define him in the most brutal way possible.
Okay, but the guy is smart. He's not just relying on brute strength. He's using his wits to navigate the South.
Resourceful, resilient, those are the words.
And it's not just James alone out there. The people he meets become part of this journey, for better or worse.
His relationship with Huck, the young white boy who ends up traveling with him, is fascinating.
Oh yeah, talk about complicated. They form a bond. But in this society, their friendship itself is a challenge to the norms.
Makes you think, how can morality shift as society changes? Huck starts out with all these ingrained beliefs about race and slavery.
The stuff he's been taught his whole life. But then he sees the reality firsthand.
And it starts to change him.
It's like, for Huck, this journey with James becomes his own coming-of-age story.
Right, but set against this backdrop of such immense injustice.
And then you have James's wife, Sadie, and his daughter, Lizzie.
That love, man, that's the driving force.
It's what keeps him going.
It humanizes the impact of slavery. We see what James is fighting for.
Not some abstract freedom, but a real love, a family to get back to.
Exactly. And speaking of James, let's dig into how his character develops throughout the novel. It's not static.
Yeah, he goes through a lot. What struck me was how becoming literate plays into it.
Oh, huge. As James learns to read and write, the world opens up. He starts questioning everything.
It's like a new kind of freedom, right? The freedom to think for himself.
Exactly. And it makes you realize how much power there is in language and literacy.
It's like having the tools to dismantle the narratives that have been forced on you.
Absolutely. And then there's Huck, grappling with his own moral compass.
All those easy answers about right and wrong just fall apart when you're face to face with slavery.
Then he has to build his own sense of morality separate from what society's been feeding him.
Which, in that environment, is incredibly powerful. But what I also appreciate is that Everett doesn't make it this simple good versus evil thing.
Oh, no, not at all. He shows the complexity of human behavior on both sides.
You see moments of kindness, even among slaveholders.
And sometimes you see cruelty or selfishness among the enslaved. It's messy.
Right. People are complicated. No easy labels. And I think that leads us into some of the big themes Everett's exploring.
Like resilience. That's James through and through. He just keeps going. Obstacles, danger, whatever.
It makes you wonder, what can the human spirit actually endure?
And that ties into the idea of morality. Huck's wrestling with it the whole time. What do I believe? What's right? What's wrong? It's all messed up.
He's trying to figure out his own internal compass while the system around him is like totally morally bankrupt.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, but it also shows how individuals can challenge that, even if it feels impossible.
Okay, we have to talk about some of the big moments, the scenes in James that really hit hard.
Oh, for sure. Like the actual escape, the risks James takes, the constant danger. It's visceral. You feel it.
It's not just physical escape, though, is it? It's like this symbolic break from a system that's trying to control everything about him.
Exactly. Rejecting those limitations, saying, I define my own path. And the language Everett uses, man, it's powerful.
And then, oh man, that scene with the Virginia minstrels.
Heartbreaking. It's just laid bare how minstrelsy twisted Black humanity into something to be mocked.
These weren't harmless shows. They were weapons.
Tools to spread stereotypes and justify oppression.
And James, he's faced to participate. It adds this whole other level to his struggle with identity.
He's being made to play a caricature of himself.
Yeah, it's like denying your own humanity to fit into someone else's messed up expectations.
And it makes you think about how these stereotypes spread through entertainment still echo today.
It's a long shadow. Okay, another scene I got to bring up. The confrontation with Judge Thatcher. The tension in that room.
Oh, yeah. It's like the power dynamics flipped. You've got James, the slave, challenging the judge directly.
The judge, the one with all the supposed power, he's totally thrown off.
Exposed. James won't play the subservient role.
Exactly. And it reminds us that even in that brutal system, there was resistance.
Big and small acts of defiance. Okay, so we've talked about those moments, but let's shift to Everett's writing itself. How he tells this story. The humor, for one.
It's a hard balance, right? Finding humor in a story about something so dark. But he does it.
It's not making light of slavery. It's exposing the absurdity of it, the hypocrisy.
Like, he's disarming you with the humor so you're open to the harder truths.
Right. It makes it more accessible, but the critique hits even harder because of it.
Then you throw in the dream sequences.
Oh, those are wild. They blur reality and fantasy. It's like, wait, what's even real here?
It's like we're seeing inside James's head, his fears, his hopes.
And those dreams often pull in these philosophical ideas, historical figures.
Yeah, like why is James debating Voltaire in his dream?
It's brilliant. It brings in all these layers, historical context. It's not just plot, it's ideas.
And it's not just what happens in the dreams, it's how Everett writes them. That stream of consciousness thing.
It's disorienting on purpose, just like a dream.
Reflecting James's own internal struggle. Okay, last thing about Everett's style I gotta mention. How he uses language to show James becoming literate.
Oh, subtle, but so important. As James learns to read and write, his own words change.
It's like he's finding his own voice, literally. The more he learns, the more he can challenge the narratives they've tried to impose on him.
It's about empowerment, the transformative power of education.
Especially for those who've been denied that access to knowledge. Okay, wrapping up our dive into James, we got to talk about why this matters today. What's the impact?
James, it's this stark reminder that the legacy of slavery, it's not over.
The racism, the systems of oppression, they're still here, even if they look different.
And it's a challenge to us.
Examine your own biases. How are we complicit in these systems?
But it's not just about blame. It's about recognizing that spirit in James. The resilience.
Not giving up, even when it feels like all hope is lost.
He's fighting for his family, and that connects with so many movements today, right?
Yeah, acknowledging the struggle, but pushing for a better future.
Absolutely.
So, as we wrap this up, got to leave you with something to think about.
Okay, shoot.
We talked about minstrelsy, how it messed up people's perceptions. But what about today? The media we take in, music, movies, all of it. Are we still perpetuating those stereotypes?
Who gets to tell the stories?
And whose voices are we not hearing?
Right.
Those are big questions. But they matter. So if James got you thinking, good.
Yeah.
Dig deeper. Look into minstrelsy. See how it still impacts us.
It's everywhere if you know where to look.
And then think about the stereotypes you bump into every day. Are they shaping how you see the world?
Be critical.
That's it. Question everything. Keep learning. And never stop fighting for a better world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into James. Hopefully it's given you a lot to think about.
And maybe even inspired you to take action.
That's what we're hoping for.